All that's left me to do is to welcome everyone. I'm pleased that you've all made it today. I'm delighted to welcome our guests, Stephen McGuire and his coach, Claire Morrison, stalwarts of the Scottish programme. Stephen's got many years' experience at the top level of boccia, former world #1 and world champion, two-time Paralympian, and a valued member of the Scotland programme. And I'm excited to listen to his journey and hear Claire's questioning of that. So I really hope you enjoy it. And all that's left for me to do is hand you over to both Claire and Stephen.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, I think hopefully we've got some good questions and a nice little journey to go through with Stephen tonight. So we have received quite a lot of questions in advance, which we'll build in as we go, and then hopefully have some time for question at the end as well. So there's the chat function, so if you've got a question, either pop it in as we go and we'll come to it at the end, or just hold on to it until we get to the end of the conversation. So Stephen, we'll start off by just a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into boccia and how that took on?
Well, before I start, I just want to say thank you for everybody for tuning in. I've been really looking forward to this chat, to be honest, because I've really enjoyed the last couple of Tuesday Night Lives with Derek and Aileen. I mean, I remember I bumped into Derek in Tenerife when he was there for his warm weather training, and I seen the effort that he puts into his training, and likewise Aileen, you know, we trained together down at the Emirates. So two top athletes, so hopefully I can. It's a tough act to follow, but I'll try. What was the question, sorry?
Just your route into boccia, what does that look like for you?
My route into boccia, to be honest, it's a little bit cliche in that I was in the right place at the right time. You know, it sounds. What happened was Sydney. I watched Sydney 2000. I was still at school at the time, and I thought, yeah, that's something that I wanted to do absolutely. But I was 15, 16, studying exams, and never really took that much. I was always in the back of my mind, but never really thought, yep, I need to research that. And then by this point, I'd left school. Athens 2004 came round, and I was hooked, absolutely hooked, and that was something that I really wanted to do. So I started researching sports that physically I would be able to do. So it's not like I was saying, right, I want to do boccia. I wanted to do a sport just to get me to the Paralympics. That was my dream. And I was probably the wrong time to send all these emails away, but I sent emails away, letters away to swimming, table tennis, and boccia, which I'd never heard of. Now, all these guys had just come back from the games, so I don't know what I was expecting. Usually, you know, we all take a break at that point and put our feet up for a while. So, to my surprise, it was at the end of October 2004 where Jacqueline Lynn, she replied to my email. It was a very short email, I remember it. In fact, I've just dug it out. And it says, we're holding the Scottish Championships in January, pop along. That was literally it. And then she gave me it was in Easterhouse. So I had to sort of persuade my dad to get up one Saturday morning, wet and wild day, and I remember it. And so I went along not knowing what to expect. I'd never seen the sport played. I'd researched it by this point, but never really experienced it. So I didn't even know if I was playing in the competition. But I rocked up, it was lunchtime, and I just made my way towards what looked like the official desk. And I just said, "Who's Jackie?" basically. And she came along and she gave me 10 balls. It was about 10 balls, and she said, "Right, just throw them." So I wasn't even on a court. I was at the back of a court. So I threw these 10 balls, and I'll never forget the next words that came out of her mouth, which was literally, "We've got the European Championships in Portugal in June. How would you like to represent Scotland?" You know, so that was kind of my journey into sport. Thrown in at the deep end, absolutely. I know what you're thinking. It's probably the best 10 balls I've ever thrown in my life to be selected. But being honest, Jackie had just returned from Athens, and there was this new classification called BC4. At the time, there was no representation in Britain, really. So it's not that I was any good. I think Jackie just wanted to see if I was classifiable. And so that was the start of my journey into boccia.
Perfect. I think you know, like you, Jackie Lynn's got a lot to answer for many of us in the sport. So that's obviously your journey into sport. What about you as a person? Tell us a little bit about you. Obviously, a lot of the people who are watching tonight know you as an athlete, but maybe don't necessarily know you as much as Stephen the person. So what kind of things do you like to do away from boccia, and how does your network of family and friends support you with all that?
Well, I'm a Hamilton boy. I grew up here all my life. I had a great childhood. When I grew up, there was loads of kids, and sport was always a huge part of what we did, because we've got this huge park just in front of our house, and like football was the main sort of sport that we played all year round, and in the summer we used to play golf, and when tennis came round, it wasn't really tennis we played, it was rounders, but there was always something happening, and at least 20-30 kids always down there, so it was always something that I did. You know, I was never, I wouldn't say I was ever any good as my peers, you know, that probably due to my disability, but it never really stopped me trying, and it certainly didn't stop me getting involved. But what else did I? Because I'm a bit sport mad. I love sport, love my football, socialising with friends. That's a huge part of my life. Yeah, my family's huge. Lots of cousins, aunties, uncles. My immediate family. I've got 2 brothers. My older brother Pete, he plays boccia. Speak about him a bit later on. And a little brother Kieran, he's in drama school at the moment. He's down at Liverpool Performing Arts.
Perfect. Yes, a big network of McGuires all over the place. So moving on to you more specifically as an athlete. Obviously, as an athlete, you're a BC4, and it's obviously an incredibly tough class. What do you think it is about BC4s that make it such a tough competitive environment?
I think it was when they started the classification. It was for athletes out with cerebral palsy. So it was basically any other neurological condition which sort of fit the profile. So we were kind of all thrown in together. And since then it's just developed and not really changed that much in terms of what a BC4 is physical profile wise. So over the years we've just sort of became stronger, we became fitter, and the depth has increased so much that to be honest, anybody in the top 16 can win the gold medal. So it's quite a very tough field.
So what have you done, whether it's in the training environment, the competition environment, that means that you've been so successful in the sport for so long?
So long. 16 seasons I've played the sport. I don't know, I think as an athlete, I would say I'm driven, you know, sport, you know, it's, within Scotland we've got so many high quality coaches that gave me the sort of focus and the mindset that my end goal was possible. My end dream was the Paralympics, and for me that was enough to sort of keep me really focused. What else? I would say I'm quite adaptable. You know, throughout my career especially, you know, I've had to change equipment several times. I've swapped from playing in a power chair to a manual chair only 6 months before the Paralympics, and all these little things just after Rio, with the change of rule in terms of what equipment we could use. So I lost 80% of the balls that I used to use. So it's huge changes. So I think these are the kind of attributes that have helped me. And
what does your like your training normally look like? Obviously at the moment it's a bit different, but what would it normally look like in terms of your training structure?
I would usually train Monday to Friday, 3 to 4 throwing sessions a week, and I would be in the gym twice a week with a 1-to-1 session. That would be down at the Emirates Arena, and I would do an additional gym session usually at the weekend. Out with that, there's like a physio program. I have to go to physio once a week, at least once a week. I've got a sports massage on a Friday, and yeah, other things we throw in like sports psychology meetings. So it's quite a full-time job.
Yeah, and a point just came in from Aileen Nielsen there that she used to love all the target challenges that you did in the gym with James, and obviously she used to love joining in as well. So how does that work when you're, you know, working alongside other athletes who are in different sports. How do you take that? How do you enjoy that?
I really love the Emirates actually, because it's a high performance environment. So there's athletes all there to improve. We're all there for one reason, that's to be good at our sport. But the camaraderie is good. You get to know other people, and you get to ask them how they're getting on in their sport, where they're going, and they're always really interested in what we're doing as well. So that's been excellent. And I didn't start going to the Emirates probably for 6 years ago, but before that we used to just train on our own. So yeah, it's been wonderful just to meet the other athletes and see what they're doing, and it drives you on a little bit as well.
Perfect. So obviously we've talked a little bit about how, you know, at the moment your training is a little bit different. So what has the delay to the games meant for you, and how have you kept busy during this time?
Lockdown. It's well, it's been all right. The first month in lockdown, you know, I really did struggle. It was the fact that we just returned from Stoke Mandeville with a friendly competition with Portugal. So that was sort of our season sharpener. And 5 days later, we were in complete lockdown. I mean, we just completed our sort of winter's technical phase of training. We had our warm-up matches, and a week later, we were meant to be in Zagreb starting our season. So to have that just sort of all suddenly stop, and so that was quite tough. But we had to adapt to this new normal. I kind of get around that by trying to change my mindset a little bit. So I bought a handbike, which it's been huge in my journey, to be honest. Because as I said, I used to go to the gym 2-3 times a week, and to have that routine sort of taken away from you, it was great. So I've got a handbike now. I had a few conversations with the Scottish Institute sort of performance lifestyle advisor, Nikki. She's been wonderful actually, and the Boccia UK physical team. They really helped me sort of find a focus of what I wanted to get out of this time. What else did we do? We set up a lot of video calls. That seems to be our life at the moment. But it's been really good because we're able to stay connected with other athletes and check in, really see what they're doing. We do a lot of quizzes, virtual games, WhatsApp group chats, and we're playing this virtual Boccia League app at the moment, which is I'm doing all right in at the moment. It's quite good. I've kind of thrown
such a modest competitor. He's doing all right. He's winning the league, you know. So
well, there's only one person that can beat me at the moment, so I'm not jumping the gun. What else have we been doing? I've sort of thrown myself into conditioning and work at home. There's not very much space in terms of throwing, so I've probably only got about 4 meters to throw it, unless the weather's good. So I'll go out in the garden and throw balls quite far then. But so yeah, generally just do what I can. I tend to do things which I can focus on more, like conditioning, rather than throwing at the moment.
And do you still look forward to the games as much as you were for this year, now that they're next year, or is there still a bit of uncertainty in your mind around, you know, the unknowns of the world at the moment?
I would say I'm more excited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more excited. It's given me another year to prepare, and yeah, I think when we do get together, it'll be a massive celebration with all the different countries. So I'm really looking forward to that moment.
Perfect. What's the most valuable lesson Boccia has taught you about yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. What's Boccia taught me about myself? It's probably taught me that if you've got the right mindset, you can achieve what you want to achieve. Because when I started, I quickly learned that I had to drive, you know, to go up and down the country. So threw myself into that. So it's something that I never really was interested in beforehand. It's just, God forbid, my dad used to just drive me everywhere. So that wasn't sustainable. So I did that, and then my dream was to get to the Paralympics. Managed to do that. It was never really to win a medal at the Paralympics originally. So your mindset sort of changed along this journey, and it developed into more, yeah, I want to be competitive, I want to start winning, and all these little stages. So it's taught me that you can achieve anything that you really put your mind to.
Nice. Just a curiosity from me, which journey do you prefer? I know obviously in boccia we tend to spend a lot of time making very short journeys, so it takes us forever. But what do you prefer? Do you prefer the one going to a competition or the one coming home from a competition?
If you come home and you've got a medal around your neck, that's more enjoyable for me. But I love traveling. I love visiting new countries, new cultures, meeting friends old and new. I really enjoy that element to boccia. So I do look forward to competition, even the preparation for competition. So that's all part of it for me. So I enjoy all aspects really. But if you come home with a medal, you know you've done your job right.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm going to go into a couple of questions that we've had submitted in advance because they kind of fit quite nicely with this point. The first one's from Sean McCann, and what Sean says is when he watches you play, you always seem so focused and don't seem to get distracted. Sean says this is something that he struggles with. So can you give him any advice on how to deal with this and how you mentally prepare for a game?
Thanks for the question, Sean. It's something, to be honest, that's not really came naturally to me. You know, I've had a lot of help from our sports psychologist, John Marchant. We looked at strategies that help keep me focused on the match and not really what's happening on the next court, whether the crowd or any sort of external distractions. If you watch me play, you'll probably notice that I put my hands behind my back when I'm not throwing. That, to me, is just literally a physical trigger to remind me to focus on the court, and it helps me also sort of sit up straight and look like I'm engaged. I am engaged. But my advice to you would just be to try and find something within the game itself that you can focus on. That might be watching what the referee is doing. So when they turn over the paddle, you know it's your time. It might be try counting. Counting's a good strategy. But try and find something that helps you stay in the moment within the match.
Brilliant. Another question, this time from Stuart McNeil. Have you ever regretted playing a shot that you should never have played during a competition that resulted in a loss? And if you did, how did you recover from that setback and how quickly did you recover?
That's a great question. Thank you, Stuart. I would say that, well, I know that I've missed crucial shots over and over again in my career. In those moments, I've learned to sort of accept the failure. Everybody fails at something, but what I don't accept, what I don't like doing is accepting not trying again. So I like to keep trying. So, I mean, I've lost hundreds of matches. It might be pure execution of bad decisions, but the one that really sticks in my mind was back in Lisbon, 2010. I'd not been able to play for a whole year. We had a reclassification issue in 2009. So 2010 was my first competition back. And my mindset at the time was just literally, you know, this is my second chance. Let's attack it and see what happens. Somehow managed to reach the final against the Paralympic champion, from Brazil. But it's probably this bit that, looking back, I kind of regret. So he was out of balls. The score was 5 each, and I had 3 balls left to change the situation. But where I was in my journey, I played it kind of cautiously, knowing that it was guaranteed to go to a tie break and I might win. But if I was the athlete I was today, I'd probably attack it, because what happened was it went to a tie break and the better man won. So looking back, reflecting now, I know that I probably should have been world champion back then. But given that it was my first competition back, I was just happy to be in the final, my first ever individual medal. To me, that was like a win. So I wouldn't say I regret it. I moved on quite quickly. I try and focus on my process rather than my performance. But for example, I mean, I've lost semi-finals, but if that still qualifies you for the next competition or such like, then I try and focus on that more than the defeat.
Perfect. Another question in, this time from one of your teammates, Louis Saunders. What challenges come with boccia being an individual and a team sport, and how do you deal with those challenges?
Individually, I was probably a very selfish athlete in terms of not wanting to give too much information, what I was doing, where I was playing, and things like that. When you play as a pair, you have to share. There's no way you can play as a pair on your own. So I had to learn to lead the pair, try and share a lot more of my knowledge. And I've really enjoyed the time that Louis been in the squad for 2 or 3 years now, and really enjoyed trying to pull him along and teach him what I can. So yeah, just share what you've got.
Magic. And one more in this section from Lewis McConnell. How does it feel when you're on top of the podium listening to the national anthem? And that could be obviously when you're representing Scotland or GB.
It's a good question, Lewis. I would say that it's a privilege to reach the top of the podium. I counted last week that I've managed to do it on 14 occasions at international level. So when you're on the middle of the podium and the anthem's playing, you know that you've done your job well. And for me, it's a time when you look out and you look at all the audience, and it's a time to reflect and just basically say thank you, because there's a whole huge team around you for that one moment. It doesn't come along so often, so it's good that you can enjoy it at that time, just to reflect.
Perfect. We're going to move on a little bit more to sort of the coaching side of things now. Obviously you sort of touched on it a little bit earlier. You've obviously worked with different coaches through your journey. How has that influenced you as an athlete?
I think as an athlete, you continually learn through many different people. So like Jackie was my first coach, and I learned a lot about discipline and a lot about values. So she was very strict, like, why have you got a bag in your wheelchair? Because you don't need it to play bocce. So the bags all had to come off, and to the finest detail, she made sure your shoelaces were tied, because anything touching the throwing box line is a violation in our sport. So you learn those little things. And then with Jim Thompson was my next high performance coach. He really taught me the value of hard work. When you were there, you threw until your arm fell off, but you knew why you were doing it. And he took my game to a whole new level. He made me competitive within the sport. But my most successful years has probably been under Euclid, the last 5 years, and that's only when I was managed to put all these pieces together and start reaching the podium. And
you've recently yourself started on your own coaching journey. Tell us about that process at the moment for you.
I've completed my level 1 and level 2 qualifications within bocce coaching, and I've also went to a UK sport run course called Athlete to Coach. It's for older athletes or retiring athletes, and it's basically to give us sort of a skill set, a toolbox of skills that we could use when we stop playing, and if we do want to go into coaching. It was such a tough course, to be honest, but one of the good things was we had to do practical coaching. So Ross McNeil and Fiona, who's here just now, so when I went on a Friday evening, I coached them, and that's been massive for me. I've learned so much, just little things like how to communicate, when to communicate, trying to give them the right skills, how to make decisions on court. I won't be there making the decisions. That's been challenging, but absolutely, I love it. Yep.
And how do you think that's helped you as an athlete?
It's made me realize how difficult your job is. Yeah, you tend to listen more. You tend to listen more because and share more.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I've not really thought about it too much, but yeah, you certainly do share more. Yeah.
That probably ties on to another question from Stuart McNeil. How well are you adapting from sort of taking information and instruction to giving it? And what attributes do you think will help you make the leap from athlete to coach?
Well, that's a good question. I would say that as an athlete, as a coach, as an athlete starting out, I was probably like a sponge. I sort of gathered a lot of information as much as I could. At the same time, I just mentioned it was probably quite a selfish approach. The only time I really took control is when you need to lead a pair on court. So what is not natural for me is empowering someone to with the skills to make the correct tactical decisions. So when they're under pressure and I need to watch from the sidelines, I've got very little influence. So, as I said, I'm loving the Friday evenings at the moment with Ross and Fiona. Well, my next step would probably, the majority of my information, my knowledge comes from the top end of the sport. You know, as I said, I was thrown in at the deep end back in 2005. My first competition was the European Championships. So I've not done so much at club level and local level. So that would probably be my next step, to gather as much grassroots information as I can.
Magic. And that takes us nicely on to the next question from Aileen Nielsen, who we had the privilege of listening to speak a couple of weeks ago. You've worked so hard and been so dedicated and successful in your sport. What advice would you give to young athletes starting out on their journey?
Thanks, Aileen. My first tip would probably be what I do is I try and focus on progress over performance, especially when you're starting out. My very first competition, as I mentioned, I was thrown in at the deep end, and I won one end of each match that I played, and for me that felt like a win. So it allowed me to think, going, yep, I can do this, I can perform at this level. And then when I got to my first medal, it was a silver, it wasn't gold. So although I'd lost again, I focused on where I was in my journey. So I was pleased with that next step. The second tip would probably be have a goal or a plan. And that could be going into a competition, it can be even for training sessions. Listen to your coaches, but don't let the results or the outcomes get in the way of sort of sticking to that process. Finally, in terms of botch, Scotland has got quite a strong tradition of sort of churning out world-class players and coaches. So my main advice there would just ask questions. You know, ask other athletes, ask Scottish Disability Sport. I believe that we've had so much success in this country because we share our knowledge within the Scottish network. For example, when I started, there was an athlete just retiring called Anne Whippenden. Some of you guys might remember her, but her guidance and her experience has been incredible to me over the years. And if I've still got a question, I know that she's always there. So I'm forever thankful for those kind of people. Brilliant.
I'm going to go into a couple of sort of more sort of general sort of questions now. One in from Gary Fraser. How has the game changed since you first started?
Massively. When I started, there was one ranking competition every year, and so if you missed it, you were struggling to get enough ranking points to qualify, basically. So you had to make sure you were there. So now there is over 12 ranking competitions each year, and the equipment's changed dramatically. So the balls that we now use, we used to come from one or maximum two suppliers. But now everyone's making their own balls. You can buy multiple different types, different leathers. So that's huge. The rampers, they used to have handheld ramps when I started with their assistant. These are now all sort of calibrated carbon fiber ramps, which are quite amazing, to be honest. What else? When I used to attend competitions, you kind of know that Portugal, Spain, and maybe one other would be on the podium, but not now. You can throw your hat over them and see who's coming out on top. So I think now there must be about 50 or 60 different countries that play the sport. Mm-hmm. So back then there was probably about 15 to 20. So it's growing. So I know that BizFed took over the sport in 2013, and since then we keep saying that bocce is the fastest growing Paralympic sport, which it still is. So that's quite exciting.
Brilliant. Couple of questions that have come in on the chat as well. I'll kind of dip back and forth with them. So one from Diego Rebello. What do you need from a coach? Not just about training, but just in general.
There's many things you can pick up from many different people. Like I said, I've had 3 coaches and picked up things from everybody. But I think in bocce, you learn a lot through trial and error. So having that little bit of freedom and flexibility on court is huge. because you can't, in our sport, you're unable to go, like, what shall I do? Because you're in that environment yourself. So having that flexibility or license to go, yeah, I can change it. I will mix it up and see what happens. You'll go quite far that way. Yeah, that'll be it.
Cool. Another one in from Natalie Painter. What keeps you grounded and being such a nice guy rather than letting winning go to your head?
I don't know. What keeps me grounded? First of all, my family. There's no way they'd let me get big-headed. Yeah, my environment. So people around about me, they're always asking how I'm getting on and all the rest of it. If you get a silver, they say, why do you not get gold? So that kind of brings you down a little bit. Yeah, just the people around me.
Yeah, perfect. Another question here from Catherine Goodfellow. How can we at SDS or in sport in general encourage more players to become coaches and stay within their sport?
I mentioned earlier that I've got my level 1 and level 2 boccia coaching degree or qualification, but I've done that through SDS. You know, they're pretty good at running these coaching courses and encouraging athletes to participate in them, even though we're still competing. So I know that a few of the guys at the moment, like Jamie McGuire, he's going through his qualification. Pete, my brother, he's done it as well. And these little things, it really helps us for life after playing, and it also demonstrates us that there's a pathway within our sport that where we can add value, you know, when we stop competing. So little initiatives like that are really good.
Perfect. I'm going to ask a couple of really quick fire questions before we open up to some more questions, and there's a great question that's just come in from Catherine Carruthers, so I'll get to that in a second, but a couple of quick fire ones. Favourite match you've played in?
Favourite match I've played in? Play any match against my brother is my favourite match. There was one in particular out in Norway where in boccia you're not really allowed to communicate when it's not your turn. But me and Pete, we speak throughout the whole match, and the poor referee could have gave about 5 to 10 violations. But so he had a little word with us after the first end and says, look, try and stop talking to each other. And then halfway through the match, Peter says, hold my drink. So I held his drink. So the referee comes over and said, you're not allowed to hold each other's drinks. So I just dropped it. It was one of those squeezy Lucozade bottles that then squirted on the court. So that was quite entertaining. But any match playing Peter is entertaining.
Perfect. Favourite country you've competed in?
Vancouver, Canada. Yeah.
Great. Lennon or O'Neill?
O'Neill.
Seafood or steak?
Good question. Seafood.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Films or musicals?
Do you know what? I'm going to say musicals, and that's because my little brother's got me into them.
Yeah. Individuals or pairs?
I would say players now. Players.
And the teammate that you would want to sit next to on a plane, and the teammate that you don't want to sit next to on a plane.
Can I go an old teammate? My favourite one to sit next to used to be Ali Lalani. He was my travel buddy. Used to, you know, we just got on so well together. Teammate currently who I want to sit next to on a plane. Probably Louis. Yeah, he's very inquisitive, asks a lot of questions, and it won't be a boring trip. I don't want to sit next to is Smithy. His passion is aeroplanes. So if you ask him about a wing, he'll speak about it for 10 hours, and I'm not really interested.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. We've got some great questions have come in. So one from Catherine Carruthers, who obviously does a lot of refereeing for both in Scotland and internationally as well. If there was one thing you could change about referees, what would it be? And please be polite, she says.
To be honest, I've always got on with referees very well. There's not very. What would I change with referees? Oh, right. Yeah, there is one thing. When you're about to throw, when they make any sudden movements, you do catch it, and because they've got to be there, they've got to be in a position to catch the ball. But if they make a sudden movement, I automatically think, am I on the line? What's happened? Am I violating the shot? So that little movement, make sure you're still before when I'm in process of throwing a ball.
Brilliant. A question from Jim Anderson. Do you think that knowing about coaching helps you play?
Yeah, I think it did. I'm a lot more tolerant now than what I used to be. I like to share a lot more. I like to be, take the lead a lot more as well. So yeah, certainly.
Brilliant. We've got another question in from Matthew Copley. He's been playing tennis for 4 years and he's competing for Scotland West for the first time. So when playing for your country for the first time, you'll be sure to have a few down moments. What is your advice to help people with their confidence?
I would say that before you go into any sort of competition, have a target. That might be just winning the match, getting out of your group, and might be even reaching the podium. But whatever that is, it gives you a focus and a goal. And then when you come back, you can then evaluate it. If you didn't quite achieve it, then you can work how do you do it next time. So you're always evolving that process. I don't think there's ever a moment where you go, yes, I've made it. You will continue to learn throughout your career.
Brilliant. Another question in from Gary Fraser. It could have been from Pete though. How influential and important has your brother been on your career?
Massively. I don't want to boost his ego too much, but he's probably my inspiration to play. Because I remember 2009, January 2009. You won't mind me saying that, but my brother suffered a stroke in January 2009. But 6 months later, he was back to be my peers partner when we went and won the European Championships. And then in London 2012, he ended up in hospital. And I remember my coach Jim woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and he just basically said, Stephen, don't bother getting up in the morning. And he explained, Peter's ill, we can't make it. I says, who's with him? He said, oh, your dad's with him, your stepmom Alice. And I went, okay. And then I knew at that moment, he's stubborn. If he wants to be there and my dad's there, Pete'll probably make it through the door. So I said, I'll get up, I'll do my training, I'll do my warm-up. If he comes, great. If he doesn't, fair enough. And 20 minutes just before the match, he rocks in. And that was the inspiration I needed. The next match, I think would be Thailand 9-0, and I didn't miss a ball. So, yeah, I probably boosted his ego, and I'll never hear the end of it. But yeah,
brilliant. Another great question in from Sean McCann. If you could bin one of the rules, which one would you drop and why?
Bin one of the rules.
Yeah.
Not being able to do anything when it's not your turn. So, I think you should be allowed to maybe move in your box. I think you should be allowed to communicate just a little bit friendly to your opposition. But as it stands, the minute they turn the bat, you have to be completely silent and don't move. So just a little bit of freedom there.
Brilliant. I think that's all the questions that have come through. So unless anybody has, we'll give it another minute for any more. But I think it's been quite an interesting sort of insight in terms of what you're. Peter's just included the 8-0 against Thailand, that he won that game in the call room. That comes back to that stubbornness again.
Won many games in the call room.
Absolutely. And what's for your point of view, as part of that call room process, why do you think you have won many games in the call room or on the warm-up court?
It's quite an intense environment when you're in the call room. It's quite a small holding pen, and you can be sat there for 40 minutes. It can be longer if there's a tie break happening on court, and you're only left there with your coach and your own thoughts. So you have to sort of fill the time, but at the same time mentally prepare yourself to go on court. So you have to find what works for you. Some people listen to music, some people will close their eyes and meditate. But finding what works for you is quite key there. He liked to annoy his teammates or his opposition, so that was his strategy. But yeah, I've won many games in the call room as well. So
brilliant. So I think that pretty much gets us to time for this evening.